Hi, and welcome to this edition of HappierMe Live. Today we're going to be talking about domestic abuse, a problem that impacts 1 in 3 people, if not more, around the world. My guest to explore this is my friend Martha Van Dam. Martha is a psychotherapist and has extensive experience in this area. So Martha, welcome.
Thank you. And you know I'm glad to be here. I always enjoy doing these with you, Manoj. And but this is an especially valuable topic that we're
Yes,
talking about today.
absolutely. So then it matters because the numbers are quite startling, Martha. 1 in 3 women will be physically or sexually abused in their lifetime. That's the
Mhm.
WHO. 1 in 7 men will be impacted in the same way. So it affects both men and women. But it's not just those people, is it, Martha? It impacts many more.
Oh, every person who's impacted by abuse, then in some way or another, every person they touch at least feels a little, I don't mean to say they're abused, but there's some kind of handing down effect.
Yes. Like if you've been abused as a child, you're more likely to be abused as an adult, for example.
You are, or you go the other way, and then you're still acting out of your trauma.
Yes.
You're fearful. You're those kinds of things. So the effects they're just
And even
astronomical.
if you may leave an abusive relationship,
Hmm.
the effects of that trauma you carry with you, don't you, all your life, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And again, the children, if there had been children in that relationship, they also, hey, Robin, they also bear the effects of the abuse that they experience. But yes, I agree. Abuse is one of those things. It's like an injury that we can heal, we can grow from it, but there will always be a little bit of a scar,
Yes.
an
Yeah.
emotional, down deep inside soul scar. And we can be healed and strong, but we can't erase the fact that the experience has happened.
Yeah. Robin, welcome. Feel free to pitch in or put a message on the chat. And of course, we'll get round to you. You know how these things work. But in the US alone, the 12 million women every year are reported to suffer abuse. And in the UK, it's about 4 million. Um, so 1 million cases of violence against women and girls are filed to the police every year in this country. And it
A million.
doesn't make any headline. This is what's shocking to me. There are all sorts
And
of
that,
other headlines about politicians, but this sort
sure.
of issue isn't making the headlines.
Yeah, we want to hear when a politician hiccups,
Yes,
but this doesn't make. And if that's what the amount that's reported, we know good and well the
yes,
number that's not reported is much, much greater.
much higher. I remember when I was working in a hospital, I used to be a surgeon, we'd have women who'd come into A&E with trauma,
Hmm.
and we'd say, hey, we've got a whole team waiting here, social workers, police, just say the word, we've got all the
Hmm.
support you need.
Hmm.
No, and they'd go home, come back again a few weeks later with the
Right.
same thing. So, as you say, the issue is hugely underreported. Okay,
Underreported. Yes. And probably for every one person that I have that's been abused and there has become police involvement, I'll have 10 people who've been abused that never go to the police. I mean, it
wow.
is a massive disparity.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's move on, Martha. Why do people hurt others? What do you think is the core reason? What's going on?
Yeah, at the core of every bit of abuse, whether it's what we call small or massive egregious abuse, the core of it is always control. Always, always control.
Yes.
And it is the abuser generally has some sort of anxiety or fear when they're not in control. And so then there's this internal sense they don't even realize they're having it. It's this internal sense of it must go my way. I have to be in control. And
And
if
it
they,
comes from underneath that is probably some insecurity, you think?
oh yes,
Or
very
fear?
often their own abuse taught them that if you're not in control, then look what happens to you. Bad things happen.
Yes.
And so, yes, it's this internal belief that if I'm not in control, horrible things are going to happen. So I have to be in control.
Right. Okay. Now, the abuser is usually not aware of their own actions quite often,
Mm-mm.
or not in control at that moment, even though they might be kind of sorry afterwards, right? But it's not just physical and sexual abuse, right? It takes many, many
Oh,
subtle forms, Martha.
oh yes. Oh yes. Sometimes one time I watched to see exactly how long does it take a bruise to leave, a physical bruise. I measured it and it takes I discovered on an arm it takes 3 weeks for a physical bruise to leave. But a person can feel a bruise from from a thing that was said to them, a way they were insulted, a way something emotional, sexual, spiritual, verbal, that can last decades.
Right. Right. And it's also about financial control. Like, some
Hmm.
people say you can't have your own account or you can't do this or you can't. It's all about control, as you say.
It
And
is. It
what
is.
about some examples of emotional abuse? What sort of
Oh,
examples could we give there?
oh my goodness. Okay, so a thing like, and this is how it gets tricky. No, I don't want you to go visit your family. I don't want you to travel by yourself. I love you so much. I'm worried about your safety. And so I don't want you to travel by yourself just a short distance. And so now this person is stuck between, well, I want to go see my family, but he loves me and I don't want to go against what he says. And also I've seen him when he's mad.
Yes.
So, so then the mind starts trying to play all these games, and these women, or not always women, but the majority, but these people who are abused then begin to become weaker and weaker because they can't be solidly in one place. They can't focus on their lives. They're focusing on making the abuser happy and maybe the other pools of life, and they get so weakened that then they also have a hard time. Even this is the emotional piece of the emotional thing. It keeps them then even being able to make solid decisions for themselves later.
And
Mm.
then there comes a point where you can control another person just with a gesture or
Oh
with a
yes.
roll of your eyes
Oh
or
yes.
just
Oh yes.
because you've conditioned them now into they know that if
Yes.
they do anything beyond that, you're going to attack them or whatever. So you've really successfully controlled them without now lifting a little finger, right?
They can breathe a certain way, and it's
Yes.
coming.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. And you were telling me a story about one of your patients who had written a list of 2 pages
Oh.
long of all the. Tell me that story.
Oh, it was heartbreaking for her. She at this point in time she realized she was in an unhealthy relationship. But she came upon a list she had started years prior. It was one time when she was trying to think, okay, how can I make him happy? How can he not be so upset at the end of the day? And she had made this 2-page list of all the things she thought if I do all these things, then he'll be happy. And it was have the children clean and outside when he comes home, have something cooking, make sure the house is clean, make sure there's nothing around, no piles around, make sure she could tell him the exact amount in any account at any time, never spend more, all just this long, long list. And of course, by the time she realized it, she was getting healthier, or by the time she found it. So when she found it, she was really heartbroken that how could I have been in this place that I was so trying to manage his emotion. The people who are being abused do not realize they're trying to control too.
Yes,
They're trying to control by being good. And
yes.
so now they're trying to control the other person's emotion and reactions. And this is where it's all gotten mixed up. Everybody's trying to control the wrong person. They're trying to
Yes.
control.
You also told me the story, Martha, of this woman who only realized she was being abused when she went to the counselor. And when
Yes.
the counselor told her this is an abusive relationship, she says, "Oh no, no, this is not abuse." She
No, no,
didn't
no.
even realize. You see?
No, she didn't. She said he's just moody and he had a bad upbringing and he has history but he doesn't mean to be that. She just really couldn't see it as an
Yes.
abusive situation.
So the people who are abused often make excuses, right, for
They do.
those who are hurting them. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't want to. Is it because they don't want to face reality? Because the
Yes.
reality is too scary to contemplate. If I'm being abused, that means I need to leave. Well, what am I going to do? And so on, right?
Yes. Trying to think. I had someone just in the last 2 weeks say to me, I knew if I started this, I was going to have to leave. Now, I don't know that that's actually the case for her, but in her mind, if I started counseling, then I'm going to have to leave
Mhm.
my husband.
Yes.
So they do have these kind of beliefs in the back of their head.
And of course, it's no particular socioeconomic group that's affected, right? Affects rich and poor and everyone
Right.
in between, you know?
Absolutely. The people in the different socioeconomic groups just have different things to contend
Hmm.
with the circumstances, but everyone, it's no more in one group than another.
Yeah, you've seen it across the board, right? With
Across the board.
all of them.
Across the
Okay.
board. Hmm.
Now, let's go into the mind and heart of the person who's hurting another. We know they're trying to control them, but
Hmm.
I think conditioning plays such a powerful role, right?
Hmm.
And
It does.
I'll tell you my own story. So when I first came from India a long time ago, I came with two bits of conditioning. One was that I should look after my parents as they got older,
Mhm.
and the second was that women should do all the housework. You know,
Sure.
and you can imagine the conflict that created at home.
Hmm.
But I was so certain, Martha, I was right, and the
Of
other
course.
person was wrong. See,
Of
our
course.
conditioning, what I'm saying, is so powerful.
Right.
And it's only when I woke up and realized that I had been conditioned and how it
Hmm.
was shaping my thoughts and behavior that I was able to let things go and change quickly. So, but our conditioning is so powerful. So if you've grown up in a home where, the men have said, oh, this is a woman's place or whatever, then that's
Right.
how you respond in the world, right?
So, how did you learn? What happened in your mind that allowed you to suddenly understand, wait a minute, I've been taught some of these things, and some of them may not be accurate or who I want to be. What brought you to that place of being able to
Okay, so
understand
it's a good question. So I think I was hurting. I can't
that?
remember the detail, but I was suffering inside. So I was trying to find an answer to my own
Sure.
suffering. And when I was reading, I came across this idea that it's your conditioning that creates your own
Mhm.
suffering, right? So
So
then I became curious. Yes.
you were open because of you were
I
searching
was
for
trying to
your
find an
own
answer to my own
discomfort.
problem. I wasn't trying to
Sure.
solve anyone else's problem,
Sure. Sure.
but
Sure.
I was
Sure.
trying to find an answer to my own suffering, my
Mm-hmm.
hurt. And
Mm-hmm.
I came across this idea that your suffering or your hurt comes from your own influences.
Uh-huh.
So then I started questioning my influences and then suddenly woke up and realized, oh my God, all these ways in which I have been influenced without my own awareness or permission, and it's shaping
Right.
every part of my life.
Right.
So when you begin questioning your own conditioning, that's when freedom comes.
We're going to come back to this. I know we are at the end
Yes,
because when we get to how do we break these cycles? How do
yes.
we
But
have
conditioning
any
is
hope?
one big powerful one. What about
Mhm.
people who've been hurt before and who are hurting now? Why do they hurt others, Martha?
Well, and there's almost again kind of connected to that conditioning piece. Some of them is they've just learned that's how to respond. It's like the language of relationship. But I grew up speaking English in my as a child. What language did you grow up speaking as a child?
Hindi, yeah.
Hindi.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up speaking Hindi because that's what your family spoke.
Yes.
Similarly, if there is a language of control, a language of anger, a language of abuse in the communication of the original home, that is what the child is going to learn. They may at some point in time try to do differently, but originally that's the only example they're having. They learn to eat with a fork or a spoon and to say yes or please or to speak the language or to yell or to stomp their feet or to say, I'm never good enough. Whatever it is they learn, they're learning that in the language of relationship in their home.
Right. Because 30% of people who hurt others were hurt themselves, were abused themselves.
Mhm.
Okay. And also, you said they don't know how to negotiate. They don't know how to get their own way or without shouting or control. They don't know compassion.
To a degree, they're all still 2-year-olds
Mm,
that aren't getting their way. And since they've never learned a healthy way to
mm.
do it, the only way they have is the stomping feet temper tantrum, which is cute kind of when they're two. It is not cute when they're 32 and now they have fists or harmful, harsh words.
Yes, yes. Okay. And we also all have to recognize a painful fact, which is the seeds of this behavior are in all human beings, in me and you and all of us. Because all of us want to get our own way. Which
Hmm.
pizza to order, which movie to see, where to
That's
go on
it.
holiday.
Right.
And we try to persuade, and if persuasion doesn't work, then we try a little bit of emotional blackmail, and how it escalates, right?
Right.
So
Right.
the need to control is in all of us, and we need to recognize that
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and make sure that it doesn't go beyond a point where we're controlling other people's behavior or trying to,
Right.
right?
Right, because there is a place where standing up for what we really choose and want to do, there's value in that, in being truthful about our experience and what we want. There's certainly value in that. This doesn't mean you always give up. You're not so that we're not being pushy and controlling, but it does mean you want to be, again, it's that being that self-awareness.
Yes,
Why am I doing what I'm doing? How am I doing and saying what I'm doing and saying?
yes, yes. And this abuse goes through cycles, right? So it's never a black and white, like, oh, this is terrible, they're getting beaten every day. In
Mm-mm.
between, the abusers are love and light. They apologize, they're sorry,
Mhm.
they bring you flowers, and you know
Which
all
is
of that.
confusing. It's confusing to the person who's being abused, but and it also, oddly enough, makes them stay in there all the more
Hmm.
because they know how it can be. They've seen, and they haven't made it up. They've seen how it can be. And sometimes the abuser can be extremely, they call it hoovering in some ways. They come back in and try to suck you back in. They can be so, or love bombing. They can be so loving afterwards
Hmm.
that it's confusing. And the abused person actually becomes bonded to the abuse without realizing it, bonded to the trauma, and they must stay in that, and it makes it stickier to get out.
Makes it really sticky to get out. Okay, so that brings me to our next question. Why do people who have been hurt, men and women, stay on in abusive relationships? I mean, they say 20% of relationships are abusive. That's another stat I came across.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whys are all over the place, but an awful lot of it is that it doesn't happen all at one time. It happens by degrees. It's that the analogy with the frog in the boiling water, a little bit
Yes,
at a time. And if most women or men walked into a relationship that was egregiously abusive from the start, they would say, I don't want anything to do with this. But since it starts a little bit at a time, by the time they realize, oh, I'm in an abusive situation, by that point, they've generally already been beaten down so much, physically, emotionally, however, they've been beaten down so much that then they don't, it's like the jail's door is unlocked, but they don't know it. And
yes.
so they stay in
They
the jail
don't
cell.
even see the walls of the cage they're in, right?
No.
See,
But don't
because,
also don't realize they can walk out,
yes,
really don't realize they can walk out. And then also there are people that walking out is so very hard because of the circumstances. If you literally have no place else to go. And I mean, really the idea of leaving everything you have, taking your children, and by the way, leaving your pets and going to a shelter, that's not an easy
I mean,
thing.
on our doorstep, we have shelters.
We
One
do.
charity in Australia has 2,500 shelters for women.
Hmm.
I mean, the scale of the problem, I mean, is just,
It is.
to me, it's really
Mhm.
astonishing. And I think we need to, that's what we're trying to do, is to bring some light to the situation. You told me that women try to leave between, abused people try to leave between 9 and 11 times before they actually make it out
Or are killed.
or are killed. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the average. That's the average. There are certainly other people, and I've been delighted when I've seen them. When a woman comes in and she realizes or even knows that she's being abused, and she says, I need out. I will not do this. And I always think, yay, she hasn't been in so long, and she's going to be able to protect herself.
Right, right. Okay. And of course, you're scared because you're afraid of losing the kids, or you've been told that if you leave, you're going to lose the kids, or and financially you might have nothing to lean on, and so on. So that's what keeps people trapped, right?
All kinds of awful circumstances like that. The Nobody's going to believe me. I'm going to be looked down on. Some people are not only, if they divorce, they're not only walking or leave, they're not only leaving their spouse, they're leaving. some family unit that had been, maybe in-laws were there, or
Yes.
so they will lose that part of the family. Sometimes they're part of maybe a spiritual or religious group, a church of some sort that would look down on it. And so then they literally are chewing with the idea of, do I lose this support? And they'll fight with, is this a sin? Am I wrong
Right.
to, am I the one leaving? And it can be very freeing when a woman realizes, wait a minute, my partner already left. He left me emotionally by doing this. He's abandoned me by being abusive. And when they realize, wait, he left first. He's already left. I'm not
Mm,
leaving. I'm just acknowledging what he's done.
mm.
That can be very freeing.
Yes, yes. Okay. So now, what can make people leave, Martha? So suppose someone's listening to this later and they're in a predicament. What can we say to them that will help them leave? Because you've met so many people who've
Yeah.
gone from one place to the other, have left. What is it that makes them leave?
I've always found it interesting that it seems that there's a process, and
Mm,
in the process, they start asking questions. They start, as you mentioned, when you hit your own time that you needed to kind of do some figuring things out, your own pain, they hit a spot where they start questioning what's happening in me. Wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. And if they continue to question, and if they will end up kind of just landing in the right spots, hopefully. This is where we come in with time. But if some like reading is out there that clues their mind, if someone says, I don't know, in a meeting of some kind, or a friend says something about, well, I would never tolerate that, or people just don't have to deal with that. Learning as they question, then they will begin to get information. And I've always seen this, that a woman, and I keep saying woman, and it's not fair because this goes both ways,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but most people will, every woman I've ever dealt with in this circumstance, she will get to a point that she knows that she knows that she knows that she's got to leave. Until that point, she's all in this up and down ambivalent. I'm not sure. I don't know. But then it's like a something will happen, and her mind realizes, I can't do this anymore. Or I choose not to do this anymore. Or I don't want my children to see this anymore. Whatever. She'll hit a spot, she'll make it, something will switch, but that preparation has to be there. That switch doesn't happen overnight
No,
usually.
no, no. You have to overcome your fear, maybe question your limiting
Yeah.
beliefs, and
Yes,
realize
yes.
that it's your fear that's holding you back,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
changing your life, whatever, and actually it applies across the board. Okay.
And it's still terrifying to them. It's still terrifying when they, even when they determine this is the right thing, I'm going to do this. I know I need to do this for me and my children. But then the first time they, I don't know, drive to an attorney's office, or leave when he's having a meltdown of some sort, they are terrified because they're stepping outside of everything that's felt normal and comfortable and usual. And they just don't know what's going to be on the other side.
Yes. It's terrible that this happens. Okay. How can we support people who are being abused better? What can we do?
Well, I think what you're doing right now, Manoj, is a big piece, because we need to be talking about it.
Hmm.
And I think we need to be saying out and making this not such an embarrassing, shameful, taboo kind of topic. Because if people are hearing more about it in the marketplace,
Hmm.
then those women are going to get to that place of understanding quicker
Hmm.
because they're going to have been hearing it.
Hmm. Now, you did tell me that telling people to leave can be counterproductive. Why is
I
that?
did exactly. And that was a new, when I realized that learned that was a ooh moment. But it was that if we are telling, I mean, and you can imagine how it happens. Oh, honey, you don't deserve that. You need to get out. There will be places for you. I will help you. There's a shelter, or you can stay at my house. You don't need to tolerate this. Well, what am I doing? I'm telling her what to do.
Ah,
I'm trying to control her.
right.
And what is her partner trying to do all the time?
It's
Control her.
controlling.
If we do that, then
Hmm.
we are doing the exact same thing. And we will say, but we're doing it for good intent. It still feels the same to the woman who's hearing it. She may hear the words, she may understand you're trying to be helpful, but somewhere on some level, the message still gets sent. I don't think you have it in you to do this on your own. So I'm telling you what to do and I'm solving the problem for you.
Okay, so what's a better way?
The better way is observing, being aware, speaking the truth. If husband does something abusive, saying, "Oh, that had to hurt," or "Oh, that had," so speaking it, letting it come out, and then saying something along these lines, and this may be multiple times. Well, you are smart. I have seen you do good things, big, strong things. And ideally, if you can mention something so you can prove to the person with their own life, I saw how hard you worked when you discovered that your child was special needs. I've seen you do hard things. I know you will make a good decision and you'll do what's best for you and your kids. And when you start feeding a woman's mind with confidence in her, when everything she's been having is telling her no confidence in herself, you start building back that ability for her to make solid, healthy decisions for herself.
Right. That's a beautiful thought, Martha. And of course, once you leave, there are shelters, therapy, all of
Yes,
that, is out
yes.
there. We don't need to go into that. Okay. My more important question, probably the most important of all of this, is how do we break this cycle? How do
Mhm.
we help those who are hurting others to change from the inside? Because the law hasn't worked. It's been around for 50 years.
It's still
Well,
against the law to beat people. It's
of
still
course, but
against
it
the law.
doesn't work. I mean, people,
No.
what I mean is the cycle keeps going on. It's not
Mhm.
changed things. The police doesn't work. You think a million cases are filed every year, it's going to change things in the country?
Right.
Hasn't. You know what I mean?
No.
Next year, there'll be another million.
Right. Right.
Right? So that's not changing things.
Mm-mm.
What can we do to get to the person who's hurting someone and say to them, look, you need to, because we need to reach them with compassion. That's the key. Not with a
Absolutely.
stick, because that hasn't worked, right?
Right. And they've seen enough sticks or some sort of verbal.
Yes, they've suffered themselves. I think
They
that's the
have.
main thing to realize. The person who's hurting somebody is usually either ignorant
Mhm.
or suffering themselves, right?
So I think that's such a great question, Manoj. And I wish that I had a one, two, three, boom, boom, boom. Here's how we solve it answer. Boy, wouldn't that be great? But I do think we can make a difference where we are. And I do think we can be safe people in some way or another. The more we speak about it, use our platforms, whatever those platforms are, even if it's just in our homes or with our friends, but speaking about it and speaking about it from the context not of just we're disgusted, but from the context of any of my friends would be safe with me. I would open up, I've got a room where I would bunk you on the sofa, whatever. I would, any of my, just letting it be known, any of my friends would be safe with me. So then people, I don't know, it's just having a little safety net around you is nice. Earlier I was saying that I think we kind of approach this from a twofold thing. It's how we deal with the adults and how we deal with the children that are
Hmm.
growing up in that, because the children that are growing up in it are doomed to repeat it if they don't, if something doesn't
Change.
happen. So you mentioned with the adults, you mentioned how do we teach self-awareness? The more we can teach and preach and I do think self-awareness is becoming more of a thing. I think it's becoming more, I see it more in social media, but I think more of the self-awareness thing is a big piece. And but within self-awareness, our self-awareness needs to be not just about us getting what we want, but us being healthy people in the world, in our relationships as well. So
Yes.
growing self-awareness, using our platforms, speaking however we can, doing it ourselves so that we're not in any way perpetuating anything that's unhealthy. And then with the children, I do think there's value in putting in schools and in daycare centers or child care centers, teaching the children how to deal with their emotions, how to think about what they're thinking, how to think about what they're feeling, teaching them deep breathing techniques and tapping techniques, meditation, and then teaching them to ask questions of themselves. Why do I think what I think? Why do I like what I like? So that we teach the introspection, we teach the self-awareness at an earlier age. I just can't help but believe if a little child is being taught those things, even if they're getting the language of abuse in their home, then when they get out, they have some foundation to be able to go back and question their experience.
Yes. I think questioning, Martha, is the absolute key. Questioning your
Mhm.
conditioning. First,
Mhm.
waking up and realizing you've been conditioned.
Mhm. Yes,
Then, questioning your conditioning.
right.
And the questioning brings its own freedom. Once you
Mhm.
see it, you can't unsee it. My behavior
Yeah.
comes from, what I learned as a child.
Yes.
But it's not serving me. I think that's the key thing.
Mm-mm.
Because these relationships, which I'm damaging, say I'm the person who's hurting somebody,
Mhm. Mhm.
those relationships are the foundation of my own happiness.
True.
And I'm damaging the very thing I need for my own happiness, right?
Mhm.
When I
Mhm.
wake up and see that clearly, then I change. And we just need to get that message more
Well, I
widely out to
agree.
people, right?
I agree. When we see it clearly, we change. But honestly, sometimes see it clear, people see it clearly and think, "Oh, that looks like hard to change." It's not that easy if
Ah,
we've been bringing a certain dynamic into a relationship. It's not that easy to then just decide, to decide I'm going to do it differently. So again, support also for people who are trying to make that change do not need continual judgment. What they also need is support, although they do need to be stopped. It's safety first, so safety issue has to come first, and then everything under that is then we do show compassion. They didn't wake up that way and just decide to
and
be
some of
that
these relationships heal, right? It's not always a
way.
question of leaving.
Mhm,
Sometimes people wake up, they change, relationships
mhm,
heal, and
mhm.
it, and probably that's best for everyone if we can do that, right?
It is. It's interesting to note that in my world, in the therapeutic world, if a couple comes in and one is being abusive to the other, I'm actually not even allowed to do couples therapy until we've stopped the abuse. Because if abuse is still happening, the abused person is not safe trying to open up and be vulnerable and put herself in the relationship if the abuse is still going. That just makes it worse for her.
Right, right,
So yeah, so there again, that goes to the safety first thing. You have to stop it, and then we can start growing.
right. Okay. And it might be that if I'm a person who's abusing somebody, the self-awareness piece might begin because I want to succeed at work or I want to, whatever it is. My
Yes,
self-awareness begins there because I'm stressed.
yes,
It doesn't matter where that self-awareness piece begins. It will
absolutely.
lead to this light, which will then change behavior from
Hmm.
the inside. Okay, all right.
Hmm.
I'm going to pause there. I think, Martha, we've done this subject. We've opened it up quite a bit. So, Robin is a coach in Philadelphia and a long-term friend and traveler with HappierMe. So, Robin, what do you think?
Wow. I always love to hear Martha Van Dam. She has
I love you, Robin. You're sweet.
such wisdom and such insight. When you couple that with Dr. Manoj Krishna, wow, it's an amazing conversation to have. As one who's been through abuse, I can fully understand from the inside what that looks like. And for one who has managed to create a level of self-awareness to
Mhm.
be able to exit some of those relationships,
Mhm.
that is also something to look at. This, I think Martha hit on it. It's a, and Manoj, it's a um, abuse, being a participant in abuse
Mhm.
is absolutely part of conditioning.
Mhm.
You don't just wake up one day and be abused. You
Mhm.
have been exposed to that way of being
Mhm.
from an early period in time.
Mhm.
For me, I found I tolerated the abuse because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to be abandoned because that's what my father did when he divorced my mom when I was 3.
Mhm.
So I tolerated any behavior up to a certain point. Some of it was physical, most of it was emotional until I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I kept repeating the pattern
Mhm.
because until the person who is being abused or the abuser sees what it is that's the payoff for them to
Mhm.
stay in those relationships, the payoff for me was I wasn't alone. I have to tolerate a little chaos, but I'm not alone. But every
Wow.
time I would end one abusive relationship, I would get into a different one
Mhm.
because the underlying issue for me was abandonment.
Right, right.
So until I dealt with that as an issue in myself and was willing to be alone and be with myself, that I couldn't have relationships that mattered, that were
Wow.
mutually beneficial. So I think I would just add that to the
Great.
conversation for people who are trying to make a change. Not only is it conditioning, but the bigger question is, what's your payoff? What is it that you are trying to avoid experiencing by just settling for this type of relationship?
Wow. Robin, you've made two really beautiful points. So I'm just going to repeat them and I'm going to let Martha come in. So one is that our patterns repeat themselves, not just for the abuser who will repeat the pattern again, but for the person who has been abused to repeat that pattern again. That's one. And the second thing is that one of the reasons we don't change is because not only are we afraid of being abused, like the abused person going to come after us, but we're afraid of being alone with ourselves, right? And so maybe that's something we all need to practice. Being alone and being comfortable with being alone, right? So important.
All right, I got to add one point to that. So here's the loop. Those who have been abused are afraid to be alone because they'll be abused.
No, get me. See
Let
that
me
again.
say that again.
Yeah.
Those who have been abused in childhood are afraid to be alone. And that is why they stay in relationships where they get abused, because they don't want to be alone. So how do you break that pattern when being alone is more dangerous than being in a pattern where you already know the level of abuse?
Okay, Martha, what do you think about all these
Yes,
points?
I 1000% absolutely back that, and I get what you're saying, Robin. And I will kind of even add on to that. I think at an existential, deep inside our soul level, on some level, we believe or feel that we're not safe when we're alone. And you're talking about having proof of it first because you were proven not to be safe as a child. And I'm saying, and I think it's already built into us because even in the animal kingdom, so you have a whole group of little zebras that are running on the Serengeti somewhere. Which one is the one who's going to get eaten? The one who gets off by itself. It is wired into us to understand that we are not, that we need people. We need to be in community. So the internal, it's not a thought, it's just this internal way of being is understanding if I'm completely alone, I may not be safe. And so it's this balance of realizing I can take care of myself, I am safe, and at the same time, it's okay to want community and to be a part of community. I just don't have to be in every community.
All
Some of
right.
the communities.
All right. So let me tell you what happened to help me.
Okay.
You must have, as Martha just said, you need a community. You need people around you who reflect back to you your strength, your power, your ability to make your own decisions, to stand up for who you are. You have to have people in your world that reflect that back to you as you're making this change, because what's been reflected to this point in the conditioning is that you're powerless. You don't have power. You can't do that. You can't make a change. And if you get courage to make a change, you end up in the same situation because you don't have the people that are supporting you to recreate the new person you need to become to live separately, apart, on your own, emotionally, physically, financially. That's a whole different person than the person being abused. Yes. So you need a whole support system that can get you from the powerless person to the powerful person.
Okay. So I've got
and
one
that's
more.
why you need programs like this. You need resources that can get you to that place.
Okay. So my question to Martha and Robin both is, you've got a person who's been abused. Let's call him a man for a change, because there are lots of men who are abused. All right.
Yes.
So a man who's been abused. And he's learned all that lessons from one relationship. Why does he end up in another relationship where he's abused again? Why do we not learn that lesson? Why? What's going on that makes us repeat the same pattern? And we see that all the time, right? What's going on that makes us repeat that pattern? Robin, why don't you start first, and then I'll ask Martha.
The pattern repeats because you're the same person. You have to change at the level of identity, who you actually are, how do you actually function, what your behaviors are, what your beliefs are. If you have experiences and you say, I don't like that, you can leave, but you didn't change anything about yourself, except I don't like that. So your next relationship is going to be just like the one you just left, because you're the same person.
Right. And Martha, do you want to add anything to that about the patterns repeating?
No, that's exactly what she's landed on. She's saying you've grown up, and in that environment that has taught you that's who you are and that's what life is. And so until we, the abused person, learns, oh, it doesn't have to be that way, and there are other ways, and that's not what I want, and I, by the way, don't have to live that way. Until they understand that, they continue doing the same thing over and over again because it feels familiar.
No, I had a thought, I worked in the NHS, and every year there's an NHS survey. And every year, for years and years, about 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people feel bullied. Right? Mm-hmm. And this is a survey with and if you look at the data around the world, all big organizations, every study that comes out, it's about the same. Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's a correlation, because the person who's being abusive, say it's a man, at home, goes to work, doesn't suddenly change his spots, right? It's the same person, still trying to control others and so on. So maybe that bullying behavior and domestic abuse are kind of connected because it's comes from the same place, right?
Well, and they would be validated at work because people, not necessarily people aren't going to say good job, thanks for being mean in here, but they're just going to do what they say just to keep the peace, and they'll talk about him behind his back, but they're not, if it's a position of someone in authority, they're not going to walk straight in his room and tell him you're being an asshole. They're not going to do those things. I don't know if that messed up anything for your video. Sorry.
Okay, don't worry. I will sort that out.
But so they're not going to go in and call him on it because they could lose their jobs.
Yeah.
So he
But
doesn't.
it's the same thing though, Martha, right? It's the same behavior which goes from home to work, right?
But it may not be. It may not be. Because it could be that person who comes home that's the abuser is subjugated at work, just like his parents did him.
No, that's a good point.
So it's building. That energy builds because that doesn't have an outlet.
Yes.
And they bring that home.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a very good point, Robin.
When I worked with children, they're so beautiful and so insightful and wise.
Yes. Yes.
So I would say to them, why do you think people bully others in the playground? And they'd say, because they're hurting. And by hurting others, it's a form of release. Mm-hmm. Right? And then I've got this beautiful conversation with Sarah, who's 8, and I can share with anyone who wants. So I said to her, someone calls you a pea brain in the playground, how are you going to respond? Or someone's being mean to you. Mm-hmm. She said to me, unprompted, that I know they're hurting inside. And if I don't make friends with them, they're going to go and hurt somebody else.
Oh my.
So I think the people who are hurting others also need our compassion. They also need love. They also need understanding. They also need healing. It's the only way we're going to break this cycle. Okay. Any other comments from anyone? Okay. All right. So, Martha, thank you so much. And Robin, as always, your insights and your passion is so beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I will, of course, share this on. But I hope those who are listening will have found some light in this conversation, the courage to change themselves if they're hurting others, or if you are being hurt, the courage to confront what's happening and do something about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for all of us, even if you think, oh, this doesn't apply to me, it actually does, because in all of us is the seed of that behavior, the need to control others and so on.